NCI System 3 Influence Architecture. Influence architecture, the third system of neurocognitive intelligence, represents the practical application of insights gained through cognitive mapping and behavioral deconstruction. While the first two systems focus on understanding how people think and why they act, influence architecture is the method by which that understanding is translated into structured, ethical, and effective action. It is the science and art of designing interactions, environments, and communication strategies that guide decisions and behavior in predictable ways. Central to this system is the integration of well-established principles of influence with the rigorous observation and profiling developed in earlier NCI systems, creating a framework for ethically shaping outcomes in both professional and personal contexts. The principles of influence lie at the foundation of this system. Drawing on psychological research and field-tested experience, key principles include reciprocity, commitment, authority, social proof, scarcity, and liking. Reciprocity recognizes that individuals are inclined to return favors or respond to perceived generosity, while commitment highlights the human tendency to remain consistent with prior decisions or expressed beliefs. Authority leverages the natural deference people give to expertise or credible leadership. And social proof underscores the influence of group behavior and perceived norms. Scarcity exploits the psychological impact of limited opportunities, and liking emphasizes the power of rapport, familiarity, and personal connection. Within influence architecture, these principles are not applied haphazardly. They are integrated with the cognitive and behavioral data obtained through prior observation, allowing interventions to be targeted, precise, and contextually appropriate. Designing interactions is the core skill of influence architecture. Every conversation, meeting, or exchange is a system that can be structured to guide outcomes without manipulation or coercion. By arranging verbal cues, timing, body language, and environmental factors, the practitioner creates conditions that make desired outcomes more likely. For instance, opening a negotiation with questions that establish common ground and highlight shared values can prime the other party toward collaboration, while carefully framed choices steer decision-making without imposing control. Influence architecture involves mapping the interaction like a blueprint, anticipating reactions, and constructing sequences that align with the cognitive tendencies and behavioral patterns identified in the first two NCI systems. Ethical considerations remain paramount, ensuring that influence enhances mutual benefit rather than exploiting vulnerability. Advanced persuasion techniques within influence architecture extend beyond basic principles, relying on subtle yet powerful strategies derived from deep observation and contextual analysis. Techniques include framing options to highlight perceived gains, leveraging social proof to normalize behavior, anchoring decisions with comparative information, and using calibrated questions that guide reflection and choice. Eye contact, tone, and pacing are carefully modulated to reinforce messaging, while microaffirmations and mirroring can build rapport and trust. Each technique is applied with the understanding that behavior is responsive to context, and that influence is most effective when it aligns with the individual. Internal models and observed tendencies. The goal is to shape decisions in ways that feel natural to the recipient, preserving autonomy while enhancing alignment with desired outcomes. Practical applications of influence architecture span multiple domains. In negotiations, structuring offers and responses according to observed cognitive and behavioral patterns allows practitioners to increase acceptance rates, resolve conflicts, and create mutually advantageous agreements. In leadership, influence strategies enable team motivation, buy-in for initiatives, and effective delegation by framing tasks in ways that resonate with individual values and group dynamics. Coaching and mentorship benefit from subtle guidance that encourages learning and behavioral change without force. While conflict resolution relies on identifying triggers, recalibrating interactions, and guiding all parties toward constructive solutions. Across these contexts, influence architecture is both adaptable and scalable, equally applicable in high-stakes professional settings and daily interpersonal interactions. Exercises form an essential part of mastering influence architecture. Practitioners practice real-world scripts that simulate negotiations, coaching sessions, or team meetings, allowing them to apply principles of influence in controlled scenarios. Role-playing exercises provide opportunities to experiment with phrasing, timing, and behavioral cues while receiving feedback on effectiveness. Observation drills, in which participants predict outcomes based on interaction design, reinforce understanding of causal relationships between influence strategies and behavioral responses. Additional exercises include modifying environmental or situational variables to assess the impact on decision-making, enhancing flexibility and responsiveness. These practices consolidate theory into actionable skill, enabling practitioners to deploy influence strategies instinctively and ethically in live settings. Influence architecture transforms insight into action, equipping practitioners to guide outcomes while respecting autonomy and ethical boundaries. By combining behavioral observation, cognitive understanding, and structured application of influence principles, this NCI system empowers individuals to shape interactions with precision, predictability, and integrity. Mastery of influence architecture elevates human engagement from reactive responses to proactive, informed interaction, creating opportunities for leadership, negotiation, and personal influence that are grounded in both science and skill. NCI System for Reality Recalibration. Reality is not a fixed entity, but a construct shaped by perception, interpretation, and prior experience. The brain does not passively record the world. It actively constructs it, filtering sensory input through mental models, expectations, beliefs, and emotional states. This principle lies at the heart of NCI System Number 4, Reality Recalibration. By understanding the mechanisms through which consciousness interprets events and assigns meaning, individuals can intentionally influence both their own perceptions and those of others. The system emphasizes that reality is relational, experienced uniquely by each observer, yet malleable when cognitive frameworks are consciously adjusted. Shaping perception is the first step toward shaping reality. Human experience is filtered through cognitive schemas, attentional biases, and emotional coloring. Two observers can witness the same event and construct entirely different narratives based on prior experience, cultural context, and personal beliefs. Reality recalibration trains practitioners to identify these underlying interpretive structures, both within themselves and in others. By becoming aware of how thoughts and feelings influence perception, individuals can adjust mental framing to achieve desired outcomes. This process involves detecting assumptions, questioning default interpretations, and recognizing the role of emotion in shaping judgments. The ability to recalibrate perception empowers individuals to create clarity, reduce distortions, and align experiential reality with intended goals. Reframing techniques provide practical tools for adjusting perception. Reframing involves altering the meaning assigned to an event, situation, or personal attribute to influence emotional response and behavioral outcome. For instance, a perceived failure can be reframed as a learning opportunity, shifting anxiety into curiosity and motivation. In interpersonal contexts, reframing allows leaders, negotiators, and mediators to guide collective interpretation of events, fostering constructive engagement rather than conflict. Techniques include linguistic adjustment, metaphorical mapping, temporal shifting, and perspective expansion. Effective reframing respects individual autonomy while subtly redirecting attention and interpretation toward functional, adaptive perspectives. Cognitive flexibility is essential for sustaining recalibrated perception. The ability to detect multiple perspectives, entertain alternative interpretations, and pivot between mental models enables adaptive engagement with complex environments. Cognitive flexibility is not simply intellectual agility. It involves emotional, perceptual, and social dimensions. Practitioners learn to observe their own mental patterns, detect rigidity, and experiment with alternative conceptual frameworks. This skill enhances problem-solving, creative ideation, and resilience, allowing individuals to respond dynamically rather than reactively. Training in cognitive flexibility encourages openness to ambiguity, tolerance of uncertainty, and recognition that reality is multifaceted and co-constructed through interaction. Transformative applications of reality recalibration are wide-ranging. On a personal level, individuals experience increased self-awareness, emotional regulation, and intentionality in thought and action. Teams benefit from improved communication, alignment, and collaboration as shared understanding is clarified and reframed for collective effectiveness. Conflict escalation becomes possible when parties recognize the subjectivity of perception and are guided toward mutually constructive interpretations. At elite levels of decision-making, whether in business strategy, military operations, or high-stakes negotiations, reality recalibration enhances situational awareness, participatory thinking, and adaptive planning by allowing participants to navigate complex, rapidly changing information landscapes with agility and clarity. Exercises in reality recalibration operationalize these principles through guided practice. Scenarios simulate real-world interactions where participants consciously detect perceptual biases, apply reframing techniques, and experiment with multiple perspectives. Role-playing allows for immediate feedback on the effects of cognitive interventions on interpersonal dynamics. Visualization exercises cultivate awareness of internal responses and their influence on external perception. Structured reflection integrates experience with conceptual understanding, reinforcing skill acquisition. Over time, repeated practice strengthens neurocognitive pathways, making recalibration increasingly intuitive and effective in high-pressure situations. At its core, NCI System Number 4 recognizes that perception is not a passive lens, but an active instrument through which reality is constructed. By mastering the mechanisms of interpretation, emotional regulation, and perspective shifting, individuals gain the capacity to intentionally recalibrate both their internal experience and external interactions. The system bridges cognitive science, applied psychology, and strategic interpersonal skill, offering a framework through which personal growth, collaborative efficiency, and high-level decision-making can be enhanced. Through conscious practice, reality recalibration transforms awareness into agency, enabling participants to navigate complex environments with clarity, adaptability, and intentional influence over both perception and outcome.